Manor Lords is one of those rare cases of an early access game that I'm genuinely hyped about. So I was quite surprised that they released an extremely early development demo build of the game. To say this demo is limited would be an understatement. It's less of a demo for the game than it is proof that, yes, in fact, they are producing a working game, and are using the community to build hype, bug test, and provide feedback. Currently, it only features the early city building and a simple trade component of the game. There's no diplomacy, warfare, or intercity trade. However, you can clearly see how they'll fit into the game later on. Practically speaking, it only has about 3 hours of content before you've seen everything that the demo has to offer. Playing the game for about 7 hours, I can say this game looks and runs beautifully, with only one crash and 2 major bugs, which I'll get into later. The demo doesn't currently have an option to save, so a crash would be quite frustrating. But then again, you really won't lose very much progress anyway. For me, a crash happened as I was about to get off, so it ended up working out in the end. Simply, just don't get too attached to anything in the demo. Frankly, the quality of this release exceeded my expectations, as many early releases for games are an absolute buggy mess, and this game ran nearly perfectly for all of my playthroughs. The 2 bugs I had were related to the lumberyard and building the manor. It seems that if you set a work area for the lumberyard, then they will simply stop working, and if you inspect the villagers, it will say that they are procrastinating. In the end, I had to build a new lumberyard, left it alone, and it worked out fine. This was kind of game-breaking, because it takes wood to build even the lumberyard itself. However, you can deconstruct buildings for resources if you need to. The manor doesn't really do anything substantial in the demo, aside from aesthetics and part of the tax collection quest. The manor house and tax office have to attach to a segment of the Bailey wall, therefore you need a large enough straight and level section of the wall for them to attach to. This was quite frustrating to figure out on my first playthrough due to lack of any feedback and the fact that you have no idea how big anything needs to be, since the building is locked until you finish building the Bailey in the first place. Another minor bug with the manor was that no matter what I did, the manor would always say that it wasn't connected to the road network. This didn't actually change anything, as all the buildings were still working fine, but the perfectionist in me found this quite annoying. Minor graphical bugs also included villagers clipping through each other, and through walls, or carrying invisible objects around the village. This obviously is a very minor issue that you likely won't even notice from a distance, and frankly, it didn't change anything about the game. Building in Manor Lords was rather unique and satisfying. There were a few prefab buildings that you would plop down like in any other building game. However, houses, roads, fields, markets, and baileys could be constructed as freeform polygons, which could produce rather authentic-looking medieval villages, which is something I find rather lacking in a grid-based medieval city builder like Banished, for example. Crop rotation and soil fertility were actually functioning in the demo, which I found quite surprising, since most games tend to overlook it entirely, and I certainly didn't expect it to be working in such an early development build. In addition, the game had full seasonal changes, which looked great with small details that could be missed from afar. If the city building component were all this game had to offer, I'd still be satisfied, given if it were expanded upon and had more content, and didn't come with the AAA price tag. But, in the end, that's not all that this game has in store, as it plans to eventually feature intercity trade, production chains, diplomacy, and Total War-style warfare, as I've often heard it stylized as. Manor Lords can be thought of as an expanded upon version of Black and White 2, where instead of being a god, you're a feudal lord. For example, you will personally see to the development of your cities and villages in order to raise the population for your armies, but in doing so might take workers away from your economy. As a big fan of city builders, RTS, and grand strategy games like Crusader Kings, Manor Lords appears to be an absolute Goldilocks union of my favorite games of all time.